Hello everyone and welcome to the May 2020 CFE webinar. This is Mike Katzman. I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's presentation. Thank you for joining me. The time is now 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those of you that tuned in yesterday, I do apologize. We had a technical delay and we were not able to run the webinar, so I appreciate for those of you that tuned in yesterday. I really do appreciate you showing up today. And I really hope to provide a lot of value to you so you get a really good understanding of what to do going forward. Before we get started here, I'd just like to do a quick sound check. If you can hear me, if you can see your screen, please let me know. Please feel free to say, hey, audio quality is 10 out of 10 or video quality is 9 out of 10, just so I can kind of get a sense of where everybody is. Also, please let me know what your thoughts are in terms of, where are you in the process? Are you just starting your preparations for the May 2020 CFE? Did you write last year or did you write this year, I guess? Let me know a little bit about your background. So, feel free to share that directly in the chat and we can kind of take it from here. Okay, so we can get started from here. Okay, perfect. So it looks like everyone's able to follow along. If you're experiencing any issues with audio and or video, you can actually change the audio quality in the bottom right corner. You can hover over the bottom right corner and then you'll see auto, and then you can change to 720p, 480, etc. So that can, you can change the audio quality and the video quality right on the fly, just so you kind of, alter your own quality based on your standards. For those of you that I guess are just getting started, and by the way, thank you. There's a lot of people here that are saying that they're able to follow along. If they're just starting with their CFE process, they're starting with their preparation process. The main reason for this particular class is for me to just give you some high-level guidance around what you're going to be doing. And I know the 2019 CFE just passed, but there's no better time than now to actually get started with the whole preparation process. And you probably have a billion questions, you know what I mean? A billion questions, I would imagine, about how to get started, what to do, how to occupy your time, given the fact that we're not quite, near January yet. And I think that that's a good thing. So we're definitely going to talk a lot about that. And I'm also going to give you a bunch of tips and tricks so you have a really strong idea of what to do and you'll be able to follow along with ease. Okay, so with that, let's get started. Let's get started and let's kind of see where things go from here. So again, welcome to the 2020 May CFE Best Practices and Schedule webinar. This is targeting people that will potentially be writing the 2020 CFE. Now, please note that if you're writing the September exam in 2020 and you're not writing the May 2020 CFE, that's totally okay. You'll probably learn a lot from this class as well. So hang on tight. There's going to be a lot of useful information, regardless of whether you're writing the May exams or the September exam. Now, I will have additional sessions in the future for September, but a lot of the stuff that we're going to cover today will apply both to May and September. It's just that this particular class is pretty detailed with how to prepare for the May exam. Anyway, I'm your session leader for today. This is Mike Katzman. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm the course director at PrepFormula. I've been doing this for a number of years, and I've also, previous to this role, I was a comprehensive marker, which means like a CFE Day 2 marker. So a comprehensive case is, are those 5-hour cases on the Day 2 exam of the CFE. So I'm a comprehensive marker, or used to be in the National Marking Center. For those of you that don't know what the National Marking Center is, it's the centralized location where CPA Canada marks the CFE. Okay, and especially I'll just say the following: this year there's going to be a pretty difficult, it's going to be a pretty difficult time in the National Marking Center, considering all of the various technical issues that have appeared this year. So I'm going to talk about that as well, because there's probably going to be a lot of confusion around how CPA Canada will handle such a scenario. So I'm going to give you a couple of theories as well, and things that I'm able to share. Okay. Why PrepFormula? We provide a supplementary personalized training program for students going through CPA PEP. For those of you that are attending this session for the first time, who've never heard of us, who don't know who we are and what we do, well, I'll explain a couple of things. But in a nutshell, we pair students with CPA Markers, particularly National Center Markers, on a one-to-one basis. So you'll actually get to work with not just the facilitator, but also a marker, just to kind of have an idea of where you stand and to, improve some of your, the best practices around writing. We've had a very consistently high pass rate for both 2017, 2018. Anything before that is irrelevant to you probably, but we've been around for a number of years, and our pass rate has always been fairly high. And from 2015 onwards, PrepFormula has been the largest and most trusted CPA program and exam community in Canada, based on site traffic. So I do appreciate all of you attending. And the nature of the program, again, for those of you that don't know what we do, we teach classes twice a week, every single week. Okay, twice a week, every single week. Typically Tuesday, Thursday nights. Typically 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sometimes there are Saturday sessions, but we teach that 365 days out of the year, or I guess 52 weeks out of the year. We have a class, or at least at least one class a week, typically 2 classes a week on a rotating number of subjects. Okay, particularly under the competency areas. So that's kind of our claim to fame. In this particular session, I always like to start off with a quick disclaimer just so you have an idea. This particular session will help you get started. So why don't we first kind of, go through the process. I always like to share this kind of data. For those of you that, so I saw previously that there were a couple people that were in this room that wrote the 2019 exam. I want to remind you of something. For those of you that wrote the 2019 exam, and for those of you that, didn't, that's okay too. But I want to show you one of the most important, screens before we proceed. So we don't have any 2019 data, of course, because the exam just started, or I guess was just last week, or 2 weeks ago. But what we have is the 2018 data, which was about a year ago. Okay. And what I wanted to show you is, in general, if you look at the total number of successful writers, it is generally up a significant amount. So if you were to average out Ontario, Quebec, and Western School of Business, okay. Now I know Atlantic is down, but take a look at how few candidates actually write in Atlantic Canada. Right, we're only talking about 200 candidates, period. Right, Ontario alone has 10 times that amount, and Ontario writers were up 20% in terms of successful writers. So 6,000 people made it through this whole process, right, and were able to move along and were able to pass. Now, of course, no pass rate was actually released, but my entire point for you is, if you're considering this exam and if you're thinking, can I do this? Can I make it happen? Well, yes. If you look at the general trend and the general trajectory, there's a greater number of people passing. And by the way, 2017 was very similar. It was also about 10 or 15% higher than 2016. So the whole idea is every year more and more people enter the profession. I'm not suggesting for a second, by the way, that this exam is easy. I'm not. However, is it doable? Yes. 6,000 people across the country made it in 2018. And hopefully it's going to be up again, probably another 20% year over year to 2019 as well, just so you have an idea, okay? I often get the following question. So particularly, and I'm going to talk about, Capstone 1 and 2 in a second. So Capstone 1 essentially is a group project. It starts in January. And Capstone 1 essentially will put you into various groups, and you'll have to present and do all sorts of stuff. It's extremely difficult to fail Capstone 1, okay? It is really hard to fail Capstone 1, and nobody really ever fails Capstone 1. because you work in a fairly large group with about 5 people, and the whole purpose of Capstone 1 is for you to be a better communicator. So you'll be putting together a report along with other group members about a particular company. And typically it's like a 30 or 40 page or 50 page case with lots and lots of exhibits and lots of things for you to calculate. And eventually you'll have to provide some kind of a suggestion, some kind of an alternative for this company. Now, Capstone 1 was originally brought in from the CMA process and was not deeply, intertwined with the exam. And even today, Capstone 1 feels very foreign in the whole process because it doesn't quite, test you on exam skills. It tests you on things that have nothing to do with exam skills. So my advice is try not to stress too much about Capstone 1 because it's not very difficult, and the chances of you failing would be super, super low. So I really wouldn't worry about it. Now, having said that, Capstone 2 could be quite interesting. So Capstone 2 is CPA Canada's essentially exam prep module, which lasts about 8 weeks and which will mimic the exam. So for those of you that are required to take Capstone 2, I think Capstone 2 is extremely useful, and it will test you on a week-by-week basis with lots of new cases. It will give you a lot of opportunities to practice your case writing all the way right before the exam. So the 8 weeks leading up to the exam, you will be in Capstone 2. But by that point, it will be too late. Okay, it will be way too late. So you have to make sure that you start your preparation ahead of time. So, but there are other people in the room. If you are an international accountant, please listen to the following. If you're an international accountant, I often get this question: can I take the CFE without Capstone 1 and 2? I understand, I am well aware that there are a variety of memorandum of understandings, MOUs, agreements, etc., with various accounting bodies that allow you to skip Capstone 1 and 2. Now, here's my opinion that I think you should consider very strongly because I want you all to pass. And I have been doing this for, I think, PrepFormula alone for 6 years straight. And I've been involved in this process for close to a decade. In my professional opinion, you cannot pass without at least taking the Capstone 2 materials. You can buy Capstone 2 materials as an international candidate for approximately $250. Now, should you do this? Okay, I'm not suggesting for you to, if Capstone 1 and 2 are voluntary for you, don't do Capstone 1, but you can certainly do Capstone 2 in terms of materials, but do not enroll in the actual module. Now, you can purchase the materials alone, and keep in mind, the materials will not help you pass alone. Like, there's still going to be a lot of work that you'll be required to do, which is okay. However, you will get actual official practice cases for day one that you would not be able to get in any other, for any other reason, because you can't legally actually obtain practice cases for day one unless you purchase this for $250. So in my opinion, you have a very, very low chance of passing if you do not at least purchase the Capstone 2 materials. But should you enroll in the module? No, absolutely not, unless you really have to. And also keep in mind, when you purchase the Capstone 2 materials, if that's what you're going to do, and I hope you will, because it's $250, and it's really not that big of a deal, financially speaking, within the grand scheme, within the grand, I guess, idea of how much you'll make within your whole career. You should supplement the Capstone 2 materials along with the PrepFormula cases and work directly with our professional markers on a one-to-one basis. Okay, so that will help you. Also, please note that PrepFormula has a pass guarantee. So our pass guarantee is very clear and fair. We provide ongoing access to our materials until you pass in the Prep Plus program. And while this includes the materials, it doesn't include one-on-one sessions. However, credits never expire, and we're going to help you if you do, basically if you are unsuccessful. We're going to build a new study schedule for you, and you can even try working with a different mentor and or prep trainer. So we're going to do anything possible to help you pass the second time around. Not that it's likely, but it's something that you'll have to do. I'm getting a couple of questions here. Jaspreet asks, is the $250 paid to CPA Ontario or PrepFormula? So it's paid directly to CPA Ontario or say, Western School of Business or Atlantic, etc. It is not paid to PrepFormula. Okay, it's like the actual official CFE materials. And again, I highly recommend for you to do that. The second question that I'm getting here is from Vahid. Are Capstone 2 materials for 2019 available? No, they're not. They will be available later on. And by that point, it will be actually too late. So you kind of have to start with our materials. They will be available sometime around April 2020. April 2020. Okay, so just to let you know, you have a lot of time. Beth, I only wrote day 2 and 3. Is it a good idea to buy the Capstone 2 materials? If you're rewriting again my suggestion is to always have the Capstone 2 materials because it gives you up-to-date new practice cases. So my advice is, $250 again is not that much money. My advice is to always have access to the official materials. And that's why they make it available. So, yeah. Ramneet, it's not advisable to enroll for Capstone 1 and 2 for international accountants. So Ramneet, your MOU allows you to skip it. In my opinion, you could skip it, no problem. Okay, there's no reason for you to take those modules unless you really want to. You could. I mean, is it going to hurt you to take the module? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But at a bare minimum, you have to buy the materials for Capstone 2. Okay, you have to buy the material for Capstone 2. That's the bare minimum. And it bothers me because the official position from CPA Canada is you don't need anything to write the CFE. And that's not going to be possible. Okay. Edward, will the Capstone materials include the 2019 CFE? Nobody knows, Edward. Like, I have no idea what they will include because it's not something that they publicize ahead of time. They don't let anybody else know. You know what I mean? So, yeah. But are those cases available along with answers? Yes. And I'll do one last question before I continue. If Capstone 2 materials are available in April 2020, is it too late for May 2020? No, but Jaspreet, please know that you're supposed to use a lot of our resources ahead of time. And when the materials are available for, the official materials are available, which, by the way, might get released even in March. I don't know exactly. It's usually... it's supposed to be, I think, April 1st. April Fools, enjoy. But no, it's supposed to be, it's not too late. Like, you still have 2 months to use them. And my point is, don't start studying in, April. Like, you have to start studying now, which is what you're going to see during the presentation today. You're supposed to start now. Okay, but later on, once you get them, you're going to be able to actually use them. Okay, perfect. Okay, so, and for those of you that are kind of going through the process and you've never worked with a mentor before, you've never worked with a professional marker, all I'm going to say is the reason why we exist is we provide one-on-one support. And if it's 2 days before the CFE and you're freaking out, you better hope that you have a good mentor, whoever it might be. And I can tell you that, if you're working with us, you'll be able to rely on you contacting us anytime you need to, basically, even if it's not your first time, we'll help you, we'll help be there for sure on a one-to-one basis. So let's now discuss the CFE itself, because I get a lot of questions about, the structure and around all sorts of kind of things that you kind of need to know. So here are a couple of key dates. So the CFE is 3 days in length, for those of you that don't know. Day 1 is 4 hours in length, and it's an extension of the Capstone 1 case. So it's basically, if you're a rewriter, you will write the old case typically. If you're a new writer, they will provide you with a new case, typically in January of 2020, possibly late December. I don't know. It's usually released, and they announce it, etc. And the idea of day 1 is it won't be the same, Capstone 1 case as what you get as part of Capstone 1. It will be the same company as Capstone 1, but perhaps, 5-10 years in the future. So the day 1 exam is a high-level decision-making exam. It's not about solving. So it's, to me, day 1 is so confusing because a lot of people go into accounting thinking that they're going to be crunching numbers, doing math, solving things, calculating things. Whereas day 1 isn't quite really like that. Day 1, there's definitely some numbers and there's definitely some decisions that, they have to make, but overall, you're trying to kind of guide the company. And there's a very particular format to how you do it. At a later point, we'll explain the format. And we actually have a CFE Day 1 marker in the program, and we design a whole bunch of resources explaining how to do well in day 1. So just, if you're, for now, just kind of park it. Don't worry about day 1. It's probably, in my opinion, the easiest day in the process. However, it's different. And we will help you understand what, basically what that means at a later point. The really challenging days are going to be days 2 and 3. Day 2 is 5 hours in length. Typically, it's a 5-hour case. There's a common area, which basically makes you do and makes you solve things within a financial reporting context, means like accounting, and then management accounting. So it's a combination of, say, 6 or 7 things for you to do, right? So for example, tell me about, revenue recognition for this company. Tell me about leases. Tell me about, cost accounting for this company. Those are all 3 examples of things, assessment opportunities that you have to solve. And that's the common area. In addition to the common area, right, those 6-7 things, there's also a role component. So you'll do, say, another 6-7 things under a particular role, and you get to pick the role. And you'll get to pick from assurance, from tax, from performance management, or from finance. Like, you can pick whichever role you want. By the way, there's some strategies. Most people end up picking assurance and performance management. Out of my own curiosity, folks, which particular, which particular elective do you want to take? Have you thought about it? Are you aware that that there's electives? Let me know through the chat. I'm kind of curious what people want to take. The most common role, and which is, by the way, the one that's required for public accounting, would be assurance. So you don't have a choice if you ever want to pursue public accounting. But if you don't want to pursue public accounting and get your public license, then you can actually pick from all 4 roles. And by the way, I just want to quickly address something. There's someone asking, will the slides be available after the webinar? Yeah. So I always make all my resources available. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take notes, because oftentimes, this session is recorded, but it might help you understand if you, write stuff down. So if you want to make notes, like, there's no problem with you making notes, right? So do whatever you think is necessary for you to understand the material. Okay. And a couple of other things. So the next thing is going to be day 3. Day 3 is a combination of 3 shorter cases, anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes in length. And generally speaking, there's going to be 3 separate cases that are not linked at all. To me, day 3 is the most difficult. Okay, day 3 is the most difficult because day 1 is kind of easy because there's not really a whole lot of things for you to do. Day 2 is busy because there's a lot of stuff to do, but you also get 5 hours to solve 1 case. Whereas day 3, you only get 4 hours and it's 3 separate cases. So it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult to do 3 separate cases in, 4 hours total, which means that, if you run out of time on one of them, you have a fairly high chance of failing. So that's a huge problem. Okay, and the key dates, you definitely want to kind of book these off in your schedule. If you're attempting to, to write this exam, make sure that you have no dentist appointments, no physicals, nothing going on, okay? Nothing going on around, May 27th to 29th. Do not book anything. These dates will be exam days, and you will be extremely tired at the end of each day. So you can absolutely do nothing at the end of these days, or even the week leading up to it. Like, do not do anything, okay? So go into your calendar, block them off, just completely try to avoid scheduling anything on those days. Okay, and I'm getting a question about day 2. Which of the particular electives is easier from Vahid? I promise I'm going to talk about this. Okay, I'm definitely going to talk about which is easier. That's a very common question. I'll actually talk about this shortly when we actually talk about the schedule. Okay, so let me come back to it. But let me first explain the levels. So for those of you that remember this picture, this is Mario from way back in the day, the Super Mario Bros. I've just taken this picture from Google. Please note that this picture is copyrighted by, the Mario people. I just use it to show you a visual representation of what the exam is like. So really the exam has technically a number of levels. So you're supposed to hop across each level to pass. So if you understand this graphic, you'll be able to, understand everything else. So just want to explain exactly what I mean here. So you basically have to pass 4 different levels in order for you to pass the CFE. So let me first talk about what each of the levels would be, and then we can talk about and explain where people go wrong. So let me actually start at level 2, but please note that in order for you to get to level 2, you actually have to pass level 1. But it's kind of confusing, so I'll start with level 2, and I'll start with level 3, and I'll discuss 4, and then I'll go to 1, okay? And then I'll actually show you an example in a second as well that will explain all of this with clear numbers, so you have a very strong understanding, okay? I promise, I'll spend a decent amount of time on this, and you'll get this by the end of the process. And I really hope that you understand. So here are the rules. Imagine that we were playing a board game, and this is the very first time that you've ever played Monopoly. And you don't know anything about houses. You don't know anything about how to build hotels or whatever. This is me showing you. So that's what you need to understand. So first, level 2, we're looking at financial reporting or management accounting competencies. Remember, there are 6 competencies on the exam, right? Financial reporting, which is accounting, management accounting, assurance, finance, tax, strategy, and governance. Okay, 6 different competencies. So particularly for FR or MA, which is financial reporting or management accounting, did you demonstrate depth? Now, what depth means is, imagine in the exam, there were 6 opportunities total to discuss financial reporting. So there were 6 examples of things for you to solve under financial reporting, and say 6 for management accounting. Of those 6, how many did you score well in? That's what depth is. And typically, historically, depth has been something like scoring 3 or 4 of the 6 in order to pass. Okay, so you saw 6 opportunities and you had to score really well in 3 of them, or really well in 4 of them out of the 6 available. Does that make sense? That's what depth typically meant. Now remember, you also have your level, which is your role. So let's say you picked assurance as your depth, and I'll talk about which one's easier in a second again. But let's say that you picked assurance or tax. Level 3 requires you to now have depth as well in your role. If And again, that kind of means like 4 out of 6 well, okay? Also about 6 appear on each exam, so you kind of have to score well in those areas. Okay, so right off the bat, if you only score, for example, 1 out of 6, and you don't score well in 5, then you probably failed the whole exam. So if you fail on one of the levels, you failed the whole exam. You have to literally pass all of them. Remember this photo. You have to make it into the tube. You cannot, you have to pass every single level. So then we get to level 4. So any competencies that are not financial reporting, not management accounting, and not, say, assurance, like not your elective role, for any of the other competency areas, did you score at least once? So let's say that there might be only 2 opportunities available. And by the way, that's primarily day 3. I had a question recently for day 3, what areas is that based off of? And day 3 usually is all 6 competency areas. So for all the other things, did you score, well at least once? That's what breadth is. Notice that depth and breadth is kind of like a minimum number of good marks. It's not that you have to score perfect on the exam. That's not what depth means. You have to score, say, 4 out of 6 areas. Now, let me go back to level 1. And I think level 1 is important to talk about last, because level 1 is actually the very first exam. It's probably the most common reason for why people fail. But level 1 is an average of all AOs. So let me explain what that means. So remember, you only need 4 of 6 to pass. You only need 4 of 6 to pass your depth, right? You only need 4 of 6, say, for financial accounting or financial reporting. Now, what happens if you don't score well in the other 2? Well, you might fail level 1. You see, the concept of level 1 is, despite you only having to do well in 4 of 6 to pass depth, you have to attempt all parts of the exam. You have to attempt all parts of the exam. If you don't attempt all parts of the exam, the average across each individual area will be low. And that's what they mean by aggregate competency demonstrated. It's weird wording. I don't know who came up with these words, but basically it means did you attempt everything? So if you attempted everything, and then scored reasonably well in financial reporting or management accounting, plus your role, plus at least once in other areas, you pass the exam. I hope that kind of makes sense. Also, so now I'm going to complicate things a little more. All marks are typically awarded under each individual area, right? So remember 4 of 6 areas. So an area really is an assessment opportunity. It's one kind of bucket. It's one collection of marks available. And typically the marks are weighted a little more on a day 2 case compared to a day 3 case. So that's kind of what we're talking about here, because in general, we're always going to have more available then. Now, I often also get the following question: how do I write cases? Like, how do I do it? How do I practice? So I have a separate class called RODAC, and if you've never written a case before, that's totally okay. But we teach a lot of case writing in this program, and we focus a lot on the best practices of case writing. So I encourage you to spend a little bit more time to kind of understand this whole process, because that's going to be the most challenging part of the whole process, and will essentially allow you to get better and better when you go through this whole structure. Okay, so in a nutshell, for you to score well on cases, what you have to do is you have to read the case once, you have to organize using an outline, preferably computer outline, divide into competency areas, topics, etc., apply a preferred format, and then conclude. This is kind of an example of what an outline should look like. It should have a lot of information around how you'll actually put information together. So that's kind of how you'll bring it all into perspective. And this should kind of give you an idea. And the other thing that I want to explain is when you write cases, when you practice, when you do one case and you're trying to figure out, where do I go from here? Like, what do I do here? The point of you writing cases should never be about just writing as many cases as possible. And in fact, like, it's not that the person who writes the most cases will win this whole process. It's never the case. In fact, it's the person who debriefs their responses the best and is able to very closely kind of monitor their own work. That's typically the person that, passes and moves on. So what I mean by all of this is it's really critical for you to go through the whole process and attempt to find the right solution, kind of the right approach for how you do things, by going through proper debriefing. And what that proper debriefing means is a proper way to take up all the cases. So it starts with reading the solution guide, potentially any sample solution, writing and marking your own paper and seeing, did I score well? Did I not? Did I pick up on some of the issues? Did I pick up most of the issues, etc.? And trying to review the technical areas for the parts that you were missing, right? The technical areas will kind of help you figure out where you want to go from here. And then potentially look up the technical topics for each individual area and then to rewrite individual portions. So I find that it's the rewriting is what kind of gets you, to be the best writer you can be. And that's really what's the most difficult part about the whole process. It's really how you, become a better, rewriter. And it's how often you can kind of rewrite each individual case that will, determine whether you pass or fail. So I just wanted to show you my idea. I'm pretty proud of this. Please also keep in mind, again, this is my official ID from CPA Canada. I like to, kind of show you my perspective, and a lot of what I share today is my own feedback and my own interpretations of what I saw when I was in the National Marking Center. So a lot of what I cover here today is I try to kind of bring into perspective the kind of things that I've seen personally, firsthand, marking a whole bunch of papers. So the reason why I'm running a session like this, and I know it's open it to the public and people can use it and join it, etc. The reason why I run the session is I want you to have a clear understanding of how the process works at all times, so you don't get consumed by the game. You don't get consumed by how difficult this whole process is. Okay? It's my intent to explain you the rules very clearly, that when you're approaching and writing questions, you'll know exactly what to do and when. So now let's talk about 2020 approach and kind of the whole plan, and I'll also answer some questions around elective areas, basically what's easier. And I don't mind explaining my own take on it. Like, I have no problem telling you if something is easier. I have, I don't owe CPA Canada really anything. So I'm happy to share my own experiences, right? I'm happy to talk about what I think would, work, basically. So let's talk about that. So first of all, let's talk about the game plan. If you're planning on writing the May exam, you should start studying today, okay? You should start studying today. And I say that because what you'll find is before you know it, we're going to be in October. And then before you know it, it'll be Thanksgiving. And before you know it, it'll be, Remembrance Day. And then it'll be Christmas. And you're consumed with family dinners, you're consumed with friends and, family stuff, etc. But you'll find that you'll be really struggling with keeping up with this whole process. So my advice to all of you is to treat each individual week as, an opportunity to write one case. So if you're already a PrepFormula student, you can get access to all of our cases. And you can get started by practicing with this today, okay? Or this week. But my advice is do one case per week until the CFE or until further notice. So basically on Monday, you would write the case. On Tuesday, you would take it up, attend the live class at 8 p.m. On Wednesday, you reattempt the case again. On Thursday, you debrief the case again. And then you've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, and also potentially a class on Thursday night. So your CFE Prep Plus program will provide for 14 credits for regular case marking monthly, and you'll be able to have a case marked pretty much every single month, and you'll be able to kind of keep up with it. So you'll kind of write 3-4 cases and then mark another one. And that's kind of the whole idea behind the program. So my advice is one case per week is what keeps you interested, what keeps you in the game at all times, right? If you don't do this, you'll be in trouble later. Okay, do not wait until January to kind of get started with all this. Now, I'm also going to upload a really interesting document that, or at least I think it's interesting. I hope that you all find it interesting as well. So a lot of people often ask me, what is the most difficult and which is, the easiest potentially area on the exam. So I often provide these pass rates, and let me explain how this document works. By the way, this document is created by me. It is my interpretation. It's my copyright. I've kind of, been working on this for several years. You're able to use it for any purpose you want, except just note that it's my IP rights. Now, let me explain how to use all of this just so you have an idea, because there's so much valuable information. Essentially, this provides you the relative pass rates and relative weights of where people scored. A C, by the way, means a passing mark. Okay, so a C means a passing mark. We passed, we succeeded. And RC is generally kind of not quite there. So it's kind of like a warning. And then an NC and NA is generally a fail. You see, that's generally what this will look like. And of course, you can have this document. I will make it public. I'll make it available. So CD, by the way, is it's called competence with distinction. But competence with distinction is something that basically what I like to call overdone. It's too good, okay? And you should always aim to be at the competence level, but not at the competence with distinction, because you will not ever get extra marks for being here. And in fact, it kind of means that you've just basically wasted your time. But nevertheless, they are marked, and you can kind of see the mark together for each individual section. Okay, so this kind of should give you a rough idea of what's possible, what's not. Okay, now let me explain how to use all this, and this is why this sort of matters. Let's just take a random year. We'll, for example, do 2017. There's tabs for 15, 16, 17, 18. By the way, this is all the information that we have so far for the CFE. Right at the bottom of your screen, you have the tabs. Right now, we're in 2017. If we average out the amount of C's and CDs, right, basically the passing marks, and then we look at audit and assurance as a competency area, right, as an elective role, we find that approximately 61% of AOs were done well. Now, if you compare that to finance had only 50%. Performance management had only 49%. And tax was 56. So remember, we don't have perfect information. And I'm not suggesting for a second that assurance is easier. But what I can tell you is the average writer did better in audit and assurance. Does this mean that it's easier? Not necessarily. You can interpret this information any way you want. I'm not suggesting that it's easier. I'm simply just giving you data, and you can look at the data and you can make your own informed decision. But if you look at the trends, and you can actually take a look and compare between 15, 16, 17. Let's look at 15. Okay, why don't we just look at 15? So here, 15, we go Here, I'll just minimize it a little so you can have it all on one page. In 15, it was pretty tight, but assurance again had the highest amount of C's and CDs. Finance had the second highest, and then performance management and tax were the lowest at 51. If I go to 2016, it'll be pretty consistent again. Actually, in this case, it was reversed. Okay, performance management and finance were the highest. Then second, I guess third highest was audit and assurance, and then lowest was tax. 2018, the most recent information, we actually don't have any percentages here, but if we were to just kind of average out everything here, I'll just tell you what you're going to get. So 52% for performance management. Okay, average here is going to be for tax 54. Okay. Oh, I should have taken bets here. I should have taken bets on what people believe is going to be. 44%. Finance was done horribly by candidates. Horrible performance. Be very careful with finance. It's consistently lowest. And as you can see, there's quite this, pretty much there's the same performance, right? We have audit and assurance, tax, and, performance management. That's all about 52 to 54%. So to me, these three are kind of in line, but finance, people went off the deep end. Now, it's very clear, I think you should, hopefully, you can see this, that audit and assurance generally does very well, consistently for the last 4 years. So if someone was to ask me which particular area would you take, well, I could tell you I probably wouldn't take finance, because just, in the majority of years, it's got a lower pass rate. Unless you are a finance genius and you understand exactly what to do in kind of a corporate finance setting, I advise against it. And if you're comfortable with assurance, I'd probably say you should maybe consider writing assurance. Okay, perfect. Also, I'm going to talk about a couple of other little things. So I want to bring something else to your attention. Now, remember I told you that you should write the same, case every week. And you should practice using all the information that you have available to you, right? Well, what I'd like to just suggest is for you to also, in the meanwhile, from now on, all the way up until the exam, to try to focus on the specific areas that have been tested in the past. And I'll show you a couple of similarities. So if we go to day 2, for example, common role, take a look at the kind of areas that have been tested. So here we have, we start with inventory, revenue recognition, research and development, discontinued operations, which, by the way, is property, plant, and equipment. Then we have adjusted financial statements. Again, we have revenue recognition, and again, we have intangibles, which, by the way, is is research and development. You see? So these two sections are the same. These two sections are also the same. I mean, it's a slightly different question, right? And then we have property, plant, and equipment, and inventory, and then some kind of an overall adjustment. Now, take a look at what happens in 2016 to the same area. What do you know? We have revenue recognition again. Okay, we have revenue recognition again. And then we have this warranty/cost of sales. So that's kind of a newer one, right? Which is more of a liability. Then we have lawsuit. Then we have development costs again, which is intangibles. So again, we have revenue and intangibles, same as last year. Then we have this covenant and borrowing base recalculation, which is again kind of similar to the adjusted financial statements when we're making these final adjustments. Then we have goodwill, which is a calculation, and then we have land exchange, which is property, plant, and equipment. So at least half of these have appeared in the year before. Let's go to 2017. Now, what's going to happen? You probably know it by now. But revenue recognition again, non-monetary, that's kind of a newer one. Impairment, similar to PP&E or inventory, which have both appeared in 15 and 16. Lawsuit again appeared in 2016, crowdfunding, which is similar to revenue recognition again, and then ratios, which is something that appeared last year and in 2015, which is the recalculation of the base. So in this case, more than 75% of topics have reappeared before. And what do you know for 2018? Oh my. Revenue, warranty appeared again. Business combination, which is goodwill, appeared before. Equipment, PP&E, appeared before. EPS, a new one. And leases, a new one. You see, the majority of the subjects continue to reappear. The same can be said about all other competency areas. So when you go through audit and assurance or finance or tax, and if you just want to compare and see what kind of questions appear, you'll find that the same questions appear consistently. And furthermore, you can actually check your own performance. So like if you don't understand business combinations and you're freaking out, you're saying, oh my God, I don't know anything about consolidation, business combinations, I hate this subject. Well, take a look at this. Only 28% of people did well in this. So it's not just you. You think it's horrible, so do the rest of the gang. So the point that I'm trying to make here is this document is super helpful. I want you to kind of print it, have it next to you, and try to write and try to use it constantly as a way to kind of have a sanity check. I think it's really going to help you. Anyway, I'm going to upload it, make it available for all of you to view and access. Hopefully that was useful. There's so much information here for you to calculate. I think it's going to be really important for you to know. And really the biggest plan that I want to explain for you is if you're planning on doing the May 2020 CFE, as the largest CPA program in Canada for a reason, we are here to help. So first of all, you should start preparing now, not January 2020. Okay, absolutely not now. Do one case per week plus do our classes. Please also note that we're going to have another session of CFE Live in April, starting April 2nd, going all the way to April 8th. And you have access to your coach, starting now all the way up until the May 2020 CFE, plus our live classes twice every single week, part of the program starting as of Monday next week. So the program officially starts now. Okay, this is the bell. I mean, I don't have a bell. I wish I had a bell. It sounds really cool to have a bell. But, if I had a gong or something, I'd make a noise. But, this is the official opening. So I really look forward to seeing all of you at some of the future sessions. Please check out more information about our May 2020 and September 2020 CFE programs available through PrepFormula.com. Again, students have an option to work with a qualified marker who is a CPA. We provide all the learning resources that you need. You'll practice using our questions before January, using the PrepFormula materials. And also we provide a T2202, which is a certificate that they can file on your taxes to receive a refund for a partial amount of your purchase, because you can claim education credits on your income tax return. Please visit PrepFormula.com for more information. Our prices will be increasing in April 2019, so please take advantage of that now. So let me just see if there's any questions. We are the largest, program, so I'm happy to help in any way that I can. We're done with the session tonight, so let me just kind of stick around and see if there's any other questions. I'm getting one question here. Is it okay to purchase materials from CPA and request markers to check them? The answer is yes. When we do marking, we do so under the idea that we are always using a part of the Copyright Act that relates to educational purposes. And the Copyright Act actually has an exemption for educational purposes. There's been a lot of case law to suggest that you can have, strictly for educational purposes, you can work with a tutor to help you understand something. And that's kind of how we operate. this is not really a commercial activity. You do get access to, you're welcome to share anything you want for educational purposes as part of your tutoring relationship with the markers in the program. Okay, so yeah, let me just stick around and see if there's any other questions. Otherwise, we're going to disconnect for the evening because I think this is good for this is good for now. So let's see where we go from here. Any other questions here so far, folks? Anything that I haven't covered? Anything here at all? Okay. Let's talk 2019 CFE. I'm getting a lot of questions about people that are saying, what are the takes on the 2019 CFE marking? I will certainly talk about that in a second. Let me just tackle one other question. Henry, I will need to take capstone 1 and 2. Would I be able to write the CFE in May? Yes, Henry, you could do so. Capstone 1 and 2 starts in January. Now, for those of you that are wondering what's happening with the 2019 CFE and all the technical difficulties, I know you are all aware of the fact that the media is calling it the Fire Festival for accountants. And CPA Canada publicly released statements to both students and to members. You might not know that they've released a statement to members as well of the profession explaining what has happened. They've also retained a law firm. Now, what does this mean for you? In general, my own take on the fact that if anyone retains a law firm, they are generally worried and there's likely damages. So retaining a law firm isn't really a good sign. And it just generally means that, at least in my opinion, that there's some kind of a problem. Now, please keep in mind that CPA Canada will still run the National Marking Center as intended. And markers will probably be asked to watch out for particular problems. Like, I suspect that they're going to run some kind of a test to see whether, a case has been completed in its entirety. So I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of verification prior to cases being marked. And I suspect that, you're still going to get, results on time, but there's definitely going to be a very busy period for the CPA body to figure out things. There's also been a lot of information kind of floating around from people that they believe, and I've just been reading some of the forums. A lot of people believe that they're going to get a makeup exam. In my opinion, it's highly unlikely for you to get a makeup exam. And the main reason for that is there's just not enough CFE resources available at the CPA Canada level. It takes a long time to develop new cases. So I don't believe that it will take, I don't believe that they have one available tomorrow that they can, execute on and just give you guys as a makeup exam if you're particularly in an affected area like Edmonton or Oshawa, Ontario. It really depends on what the severity of the problem is, but what I suspect is that, there might be some kind of compensation from CPA Canada, plus still just allow people to write the May exam without having an attempt. So I suspect that this is what's going to happen here, but it's all going to come down to what, basically what's going to happen in the next month or so. So that's my take on it. I don't have any other take on it. I think it's highly unlikely that you'll have a makeup exam, which is a question that I get a lot. Faisal, is the PrepFormula course enough, or do we still need capstone 1 and 2? The PrepFormula course is designed to be perfectly sufficient as long as you purchase the capstone 2 materials. So always purchase the capstone 2 materials, but you don't actually need to enroll in the module. So it should be enough, but you do need the actual official materials. So you can buy those directly from the CPA body. Okay. And, any other questions, folks? Anything else that you're curious about? I've been getting a lot of questions about the 2019 CFE, and there's a lot of things that I can't really share. So I think I've explained what I'm allowed to share. And hopefully that should kind of give you a little bit of direction. And a lot of what I'm talking about is sort of my own opinion and things that I'm able to talk about and communicate to you. But my advice is not to really think about the 2019 CFE too much, because it's outside of your hands and there's at this point nothing that you could do. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is, right? Like, you can't do anything now. Even if you didn't really do a portion of the exam because of technical difficulties, or you were not able to use a handbook, it's not great, but there's also nothing that you could do at this point. So yeah. Anyway, folks, I will make everything that I've just shared available for you. I'm going to just upload it, upload all the information, and they will be available under webinar resources as soon as we are done, and you'll be able to download this whole spreadsheet, and you'll be able to kind of get it here. Okay. Yeah. And someone's asking again, where do we purchase the Capstone 2 materials? Yeah, it's available directly through CPA Canada, but please note that the CPA Canada materials are not available for a while. Okay. So for now, you should be using PrepFormula resources, and please write one case a week. Okay. Do not wait, because by that point it'll be too late. Edward, would the study schedule be the same for a 19 writer? Yes. Edward, to me, case writing is kind of like running a marathon. You have to constantly practice. You have to constantly run for you to stay in shape. And that's all I'm suggesting for you to do. So by you doing a case a week, you feel like you're kind of there. You know what I mean? If you're tired, take a 2-week break, a 3-week break. I'm not saying drop everything tomorrow and do it. I'm saying don't wait till January, right? My point is, don't wait till January. Wait until, whenever. Faisal, will the day one case be available without getting admission in Capstone 1? Yes, but you have to still purchase the materials. The day one case historically has been made available publicly and is provided to other candidates. Okay, folks? Perfect. If you have any additional questions, feel free to get in touch with me. Here's my contact information. I've left it on the final screen. I really hope that you all pass on the first try. And if you're a 2019 writer, don't worry about it. Don't stress about it until late November, early December. And for now, just focus on living your life. I'm getting another question. I'm still debating whether to write either May or September. Any thoughts? Historically, this is kind of a funny thing for me to say, but historically, off the record, I've always felt that the May attempt is easier compared to the September attempt. So I don't really have any data to back this up, but there's a significantly higher number of Big Four writers who write the September exam. So, and the Big Four writers historically have the highest pass rates in the whole process. So my advice is for you to possibly consider doing May. So all other things being equal, because you are ranked to other candidates, right? This isn't a minimum bar exam. You're always compared to other candidates in the process. All things being equal, I actually think May is an easier exam. I know I'm probably going to get in trouble saying something like this, because I'm going to get a lot of emails saying, I can't believe that you just said that. But you know what? That's my opinion after doing this for again, a while. And there was a May CFE in 2016, and in my opinion, it was an easier exam. It was an easier exam and had easier performance and had slightly higher pass rates, anecdotally, compared to the September exam. So I'm going to say, you know what, that's my opinion. You can, I'll let you decide whether you believe it or not. But that's the way that I feel. Okay, folks. So yeah, if you have any additional questions, please do reach out. I'm certainly happy to help. I really appreciate all of you attending, and I really look forward to seeing you all next week. Okay, when this the CFE program starts. So if you haven't registered yet, now is the time. And yeah, looking forward to having you all in our future classes. Thank you again, folks, and hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye bye.